Dave, as we can see behind us, the work started on the pitch today. What is it that's actually happening this summer?
Eventually we're getting round to corrowing off about 10 mil of the top of the pitch to get rid of all the annual meadow grass that's invaded over the last 4 or 5 years, post Desmond. So hopefully the majority of that will disappear. All this sort of dead grass build-up, organic rubbish that's built up over last season, a rather wet winter and autumn. So clean that all off, and then we'll put some about somewhere in the region of 70-80 tons of sand on, and then I'll come along with the master machine, the Toro Procore, and bang in millions of holes. And the way the weather is tomorrow, hopefully we'll get that down the holes, vibrates down the holes very well. There's drainage channels, and then hopefully at the start of next week we'll get that, we'll get it levelled off probably Friday, and then seeded Monday.
Now, from the outside looking in, it looks like it's been more complicated this year because you didn't have an end season date, you haven't got a start season date. How on earth do you get the work done in between?
Yeah, it has been obviously different. At the beginning of the lockdown, it was a case of we were still preparing Button Park to come back and play, and keeping training facilities going to still come back and train, with a view to finish the season. And then as time went on, it was pretty obvious but not official that would not be the case, and then the season would be curtailed, but all the time still keeping everything playable, if you like. But there came a point within that where I decided to start shaving Broughton Park down and getting it prepped up for renovation rather than matches, which fortunately has turned out to be the right decision, based on evidence available at the time. It's been a bit of a mishmash, and here we are at the end of June rather than the end of May, perhaps. And I don't know. Well, we don't get a whisper, do we? We just get the same as everybody else, where we might be talking a restart at the end of August or into September or even beyond. Who knows? Or everybody starts at different times. So hopefully, if we can get finished by early next week, that we might just squeeze 8 weeks of germination to first match, which is probably around about a minimum. We have done it in less time in the past, but when you start with nothing, it's a bit of a dangerous game.
How much more complicated does it make it, Dave, not having that start date? Because generally you could say first week of August, a couple of friendlies 2 weeks before that, yeah, and that's a date. So how do you even begin to plan for what we're doing now?
Well, I think we're governed by at the moment is probably growing season, whereby if we're going to do any work, we've got to sort of get it done by the end of August to give us 8 weeks. Otherwise, we're sort of asking the weather to be really good in September if we sort of still growing grass from seed and then start to play on it. So that's probably a deadline there. I suppose we could have done nothing, but then we pay the penalty come next sort of winter time and beyond. So there had to come a point where if the pitch needs attention, so we have to get on with it, kind of thing. So, but like I say, the curtailment of the season, at least, I'm not saying it's not an excuse to do something, but at least it was we've got a window to sort of do something. Then you start looking at if you get a firm date for a restart of the season, then you work back. I don't know what a manager works on, 5-6 weeks before the first game. Well, that probably takes us to something like, well, it could be anything. It could be next week. It could be first week in July, second week in July. So then your training facilities need to be up and running by that. So we have been restricted on that in terms of there's not really been a massive window for that. If we wanted to give ourselves a window, I think I mentioned to Nigel in the early days that back in sort of mid-March that we could have done the renovation then in hindsight, but it was a massive risk in terms of if like I say, if we'd taken Broughton Park down to no grass in mid-March, not knowing what the weather was going to do and trying to grow it in 8 weeks, and then all of a sudden the Football League say, yeah, you're going to be back playing in 3 weeks. Well, we have no surface. So that's where I think that everybody was just looking for some sort of clarity of within football, where every department can move. But we were where we were. We're in uncharted waters, so that's where we are.